A few months ago, I found myself in a sticky situation. So there were a few weeks left to go before the school dance, and I still didn't have a date. And at the time, I really didn't have my eye on anyone in particular, but I knew that I didn't want to go by myself. So one day, as I was stressing over who to ask, my friend comes up to me and gives me an interesting piece of advice. He says, "Rudy, go up to 3 girls who you think are attractive, who are out of your league. Be confident when you go up to them and shoot your shot." And quite frankly, at first, I thought that he was being a little too bold. But then I said to myself, why not? Let's give it a try and see what happens. So for attempt number 1, I go up to a girl from my math class, say something along the lines of, "Hey, I really like your outfit. Can I get your number?" And she responds, "I have a boyfriend." But I wasn't too discouraged. So attempt number 2, this time, it's the night of the big football game. At halftime, I cross over the bleachers and go up to a girl from the opposing team. I do my spiel, ask for her number, and this time, she doesn't respond. Rather, her friend, standing to the right of her, looks at me and says, "She actually doesn't speak English." And now, despite the fact that statistically, 99.8% of students in my school district speak English, and despite the fact that the girl who I had asked was wearing a speech and debate state championship t-shirt, I told myself at the time, and even yet to this day, for my sanity, that she was indeed telling the truth. But anyway, after going 0 for 2, I told myself that there's no way I go 0 for 3. And unfortunately, I did end up going 0 for 3. And I went to the school dance with a group of my guy friends without a date. But there is some silver lining here, because my friend's advice about talking to girls did end up changing my life, just not in the way that I expected it to. So a couple weeks later, we had a school assignment in which we had to go out and interview 3 professionals in our field of interest. And inspired by my friend's advice about talking to girls, I decided to reach out to 3 professionals who were, in a way, like the girls out of my league. I sent an email asking to meet with Mark Cuban, an Ivy League University professor, and a Fortune 500 CEO. And after getting a reply back from, or even a meeting with all 3 of them, I realized that I was onto something. I realized that if at such a young age that I can make such important connections, that I can harness the power of networking, I realized the power that lies in mastering the art of professional networking. And since then, I decided to start putting conscious effort into building my network. And as a result, have had access to a plethora of amazing opportunities. For example, after connecting with a blind inventor on LinkedIn, I worked with him personally to learn about the applications of amazing technologies like brain-computer interfaces. And this summer, I'm trying to use that knowledge to build my own game that you can control simply by thinking about what you'd like the character to do. And this just scrapes the surface of the opportunities and learning experiences I've had as a result of my network. I've also made meaningful connections with politicians, billionaires, venture capitalists, and influential people. So the next time I want to start a company and raise funding, the next time I want to run for the mayor of my town, or the next time I want to apply to college and would like a recommendation, I know exactly who I can reach out to. And that right there is invaluable. So today I'm not here, with that being said, to talk to you about the countless benefits of networking that I'm sure you're already aware of, such as access to more opportunities, access to inventive ideas, and confidence building. Rather, I'm here to talk to you today about why you as a teen or a young adult, like me, should start networking from an early age, and explain how you can leverage your age to be your competitive advantage. And to go ahead and illustrate this, I've created a graph. So on the x-axis is your age during the first stage of your professional journey, from about 15 to 25 years of age. And on the y-axis is the impressiveness of your background and achievements. As you can see, The older you get, the less and less impressive they start to appear if they're of the same caliber. Let me give you an example. If I told you that I started my own company with $10,000 in revenue at the age of 15 years old, you'd probably be very, very impressed. But if I told you that I did the exact same thing 10 years later at the age of 25, you'd probably be thinking, how in the world can this guy pay his rent with $10,000? What's so special about this guy? I've heard of someone do this a dozen times before. And that right there is the kind of thinking that goes on in the minds of influencers, aka the people you want to network with. I mean, think about networking from the perspective of the CEO of a successful tech company. You probably have dozens of people reaching out to you every single day, asking to meet, asking for a job, asking for an internship. In simple logic, along with this graph of the distribution of LinkedIn users, tells us that most of the people reaching out to you are likely ambitious college graduates in their mid-20s to early 30s looking for their next opportunity. So, if a meeting request from a 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, or 20-year-old breaks the norm and ends up in your inbox, it'll likely immediately catch your attention because you as a CEO know that if someone who isn't even old enough to work at your company, if they're reaching out to you, it's because they're genuinely interested in learning from your life story, and that they're genuinely interested in forming a meaningful connection with you and in asking you for some real advice. And that right there is exactly what you would like to leverage if you're starting to network as a teen or a young adult. Now, let's see what happens if we take our graph and reflect it horizontally. So the x-axis remains still as your age, within the same age range. But the y-axis now represents the effort needed to make meaningful connections. As you can see, the older you get, the more and more effort you have to put in within this age range while your network is still small. This is because, as a result of the reasons we talked about earlier, the older you get, the less and less genuine your intentions appear. The less and less impressive your achievements appear. And the more and more people there are within the same age range competing for the attention of the same people. And in the eyes of the CEO from earlier, the older you get, the more and more you start looking like a colleague than someone they can mentor and form a genuine relationship with. So, for all my teen and young adults out there today, start networking ASAP, because these are the golden years of your life in which you can leverage your age to be your competitive advantage. Now let's talk about exactly how you can go about doing so. And inspired by my friend's advice about talking to girls, and through a little bit of trial and error, I've come up with a strategy that works well for me. And here's what I'd like you to do. Every 3 months, I'd like you to pick out 3 industries that you're interested in. These industries can be as connected, narrow, or broad as you would like. If you're not quite sure what you'd like to do with your life, that's totally okay. Your industries can just be things that you're somewhat interested in. Can look like art, venture capital, and industrial engineering. If you're like me and have a little bit of a targeted idea of what you'd like to study and pursue, for me it's business, your industries can be a little bit more connected to your area of study. So for my last 3-month cycle personally, I picked investment banking, venture capital, and marketing as my 3 industries. The next thing you want to do, whether it be through a LinkedIn DM, physical interaction, or email, I want you to find and reach out to 3 people in each of those 3 industries for a total of 9 people. When you're reaching out to these people, I want you to either ask to meet for coffee or virtually, depending on location. And when you're asking that, say that you want to meet with them because you're interested in asking them for advice and in learning from them. And to help you be successful upon these networking endeavors, I have a few tips for you. And the first tip I have for you is don't be generic. Don't take the same email, write up a couple words, and send it out to all 9 people. What you do want to do is be specific. Take at least 10 minutes to research each person that you'd like to reach out to. And in your point of contact request that you send to them, list at least 3 facts. These facts can be about any achievements they've had, any companies they've started, or even any hobbies they have. Take those 3 facts and connect it back to yourself and your motivations for wanting to network with that person. And tie it back in, because trust me, those 10 minutes can make the difference between a successful connection and an ignored email. It does indeed work. Now, the second tip I have for you today is don't be afraid to brag. And here's what I mean by this. So studies actually show that cold emails have on average 5 seconds to capture the reader's attention. And if you're not bold, chances are that you likely won't capture your reader's attention. So here's what you want to do. Number 1, humbly brag about and mention any experiences you have if they're relevant to the industry of the person you're trying to network with. And I know that if you're trying to network at a young age, you probably don't have much experience in any industry whatsoever. But with a little bit of correct wording, you can turn even a speck of dust into glitter. And here's how. So me, for example, I was trying to connect with an investment banker. And as a junior in high school who doesn't have much experience in investment banking, what I did in my email was that I talked about the time I'd made a stock trading model. And I made it look like a huge deal, a huge complicated model, when in reality, it was something I made for a school project that was a fairly simple model that I think over the past 4 months has lost me 40% on my portfolio. But in leveraging that model and in talking about that, I was able to establish at least some credibility in the field and show the person that I know at least sort of what I'm talking about. And that right there is very important to make a difference. Now, the second tip I have for you is do mention your age and leverage it if it works in your favor. You know, when I was getting in touch with that investment banker, I said things along the lines of, even though I'm only 17, I'm interested in investment banking. Even though I'm only 17, I went ahead and made that model. This is because no one wants to be mean to a kid. No one wants to be mean to someone that young. So if you go ahead and say that, you can leverage it to work in your favor. Now, the final tip I have for you today is don't ask for a job or an internship in the first email or meeting request you send someone. And I know that, if you're networking, this is probably one of your motivations behind networking. You're probably very ambitious. So what you do want to do is wait until the person actually agrees to meet with you. Go to your meeting, go to your coffee date, virtual interview, and at the end of that meeting, at that point, hit them with an ask. And word your ask something along the lines of, is there any way I can get involved with what you do? Is there any way I can support you in your work? Rather than just simply wording it like, can I have a job? Because trust me, that right there makes the difference. Is asking someone for a job immediately can be a huge turnoff and can even prevent you from getting a reply back in the first place. So today, if you take these frameworks and strategies and you go ahead and apply them, you can make your age your competitive advantage when networking, so that when you get to the age when everyone around you is networking, you can have the extent to your network and the amount of connections you have as your own competitive advantage, and make networking your competitive advantage. Now, trust me, I know, whether it's talking to girls or networking, there will be some rejections. There are going to be times when you're going to get left on red, ignored, or told that they don't speak English. But trust me, there is some silver lining at the end of it. Because a wise person once said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So don't be afraid to take that shot and go out and network. What do you have to lose? Unless you're like me, then maybe a little bit of your dignity. If you decide to tell the world about the time a girl said that she didn't speak English to not talk to you. But something I've learned from my networking endeavors and through my life is that there's never a bad time or a bad place to be networking. So before I leave, I'd like to shoot my shot. So for any ladies or PhDs out in the audience, whether you'd like my Snapchat or my LinkedIn, see me after the talk.